Welcome to the Irish Baptist College podcast, Let's Talk. We're back for another season entitled Formative 5. This time around, each guest has been asked to bring along 5 books that have been particularly influential for them, 5 books that have formed them. Given Christians are people of the Bible, people of the good book, I think it's fair to say Christians should be people of good books in general. And we're not saying that every Christian must be reading a mountain of books every year. Rather, Christians should be people who read steadily, consistently, whether quickly or slowly, as we seek to know our God, know our Bibles, and indeed know ourselves better. We should continually be renewing our mind with both Scripture and other written materials. So in this season, we're going to find out what books the college staff have read, how they have shaped us, and to consider if you might find a book to add to your to-read list. And to help us with that in this episode is Dr. David Luke, our postgraduate director and church history lecturer.
Historical theology
lecturer as well. I always second guess myself on which one that should be. The two, of course, are intimately connected.
You've only been here 7 years, so...
Yeah, just keep going. How are you today?
Yeah, I'm good, thanks. Good.
We're nearing the end of semester 1. Has it been a good semester or a busy semester?
Yeah,
every semester's busy.
Every semester's busy. Yeah, it has been pretty busy. So yeah, but it's good to get towards the end. I think when you get towards the end of the semester, you begin to feel that all around you, that everybody's pressing towards the finish line. And for students, as I often say to them, it's the business end of the semester as work piles up.
Yeah. The atmosphere in the building is distinctly different in the final 3 or 4 weeks of term than it is in the first 3 or 4 weeks of term.
Absolutely. The first part of the semester seems long and slow, and the second half seems very busy and pressurized.
Yeah, for sure. Well, we're delighted that you're willing to talk to us about 5 books that have shaped you in some way. Do you have only 5 books? Have you obeyed the rules?
I have obeyed the rules.
That's good. Other guests have flaunted the rules, but
to hear is to obey. So
good. So we're going to ask you just to talk through each of the books. What they are, explain a little bit about them, share why it's been formative for you and what way it shaped you, and then maybe, if applicable, who should think about reading each book. So we're good for you just to take us through. Now, are you going to share them in any particular order or not really?
Well, if you can see them, for those of you who are watching online, you can see I actually have them arranged by size.
By size, okay.
So
we've not had that yet, so that's a first.
But having said that, I'm actually going to begin with the bottom one, which is the biggest and the oldest, and it's called The Living World of History in Colour.
Okay.
So this was my very first history book, which I have held onto across these 50-ish years, and I think...
I was going to ask what age you got that book, but I'll not do that because that's enough information.
So I used to pore over this book as a boy, and I think it was the first book that ignited my interest in history. Okay. I'll not say I pored over it, but I'll not say that I read it all, because it's very lavishly illustrated, and the illustrations are quite striking. I always thought they captured something of the romance, I think, of historical study, and there are all these wonderful, I think it must be hand-painted pictures throughout it, and they're throughout it, and I say that always fired up my imagination as a boy, and it was probably the first hook that really got me interested in thinking about history. So I say I've held on to it across all these years, and of course history has gone on then to be a huge part of my life. Studying history, working as an historical researcher, and now teaching historical theology brackets church history, just to keep you happy. But kind of that's in terms of formative influences. That was probably a very formative one from a very
getting
early
this
age.
volume's pinpointing the start of that journey into
I think it is.
history.
I think it is. Obviously, I think this was first published in 1963, which was before I was born, only just. And there undoubtedly has been surpassed by other volumes now. And it's not that I would expect anybody to run out and buy this now. But
if it's still in print, I suppose, I don't know.
I
Did
doubt
you
it.
check? No.
I doubt it. I doubt it. But I think, again, it's, if you're a parent, I think it's a good thing maybe to encourage your children young in life with books. Certainly from my point of view, to encourage them to read a bit of history. And I suppose one of the good things about this book, it kind of begins at the beginning, and I think it brings it up maybe to the end of the Second World War would have been the case. So, and it has given me throughout my life just a kind of a general sense of the flow of history. And I think that's good for everyone, and not least for maybe children and young people.
You've kept us in anticipation, and we're going to get to see some of the illustrations on the inside. Is that?
I'm not sure how well you can capture these, Matt.
I think
that's pretty good, yeah.
Yep. So.
Well, I don't even care if our listeners can't see it. I just want to have a wee glance inside, and so it just follows world history.
Yeah,
so where does it begin? You said at the beginning it doesn't begin with creation, does it?
Well, it begins with the Stone Age.
Okay.
So that's where it begins, and then the Egyptians and ancient China. So say it takes us right through. It does have some great headings. The Unteachable Stuarts is one that always strikes me, and Bismarck, the man of blood and iron. The Sick Bear, so there's some kind of evocative titles.
You can see how that might spark the interest and intrigue.
So it was a good thing to kind of open up my mind to say to the kind of the flow of history across the world, across the millennia.
More text in it than I was anticipating. I was anticipating larger illustrations and less text, but so good narrative alongside.
Yeah, so it's a very
great.
So that's book number one.
Book number one, and I'm sure all of us have books that look like that on our shelves that look a bit dated and kind of, but maybe pick it up off the shelf and have a browse and see what's inside it.
I did keep my books, keep them well, but this is the only one that survived because I had a thing come into my life at one point called a younger brother, who didn't deal as kindly with my books as I did. So this is one of the few.
So this is the prized possession.
Yes, this is one of the few that has survived all through the years.
So were you on the phone with the insurance company before you brought it into the building? Make sure it's covered.
Hadn't thought about that. So.
Excellent. Good. Okay, book number 2 then.
Yeah, book number 2 is a book by R.C. Sproul called The Holiness of God. Mm-hmm. So I was trying to think how I picked this up in the first place. I was a student at the time. I suspect it might have been recommended to me by John Greer, who's the manager of the Evangelical Bookshop, was a great friend and support to many of us when we were students. So I picked this up as a student. I subsequently realised that I didn't even know how to pronounce this man's name. I thought he was R.C. Sproul because it looked like Sproul as in sprout, but I subsequently discovered he's R.C. Sproul. It's quite a distinctive book. It begins in quite an unusual way. It begins with this little autobiographical picture, and how he's impressed by the whole concept of the holiness of God. And from that autobiographical little picture, he then proceeds to unlock the concept of the holiness of God and why it's so important. And I remember reading it as a student, and it was absolutely electrifying and really really got me thinking about God in His holiness. What is God's holiness, how that ought to affect and shape us. And I've no doubt that it has, ever since then, shaped my own ideas and my own thinking about God. I was excited by it, and I recommended it to all my fellow housemates as a student. But I think the thing we most took away from it is he opens one of the chapters with a little verse from Edgar Allan Poe. Gaily bedight, a gallant knight in sunshine and in shadow, riding along, singing his song in search of El Dorado. I think we all memorized that. But yeah, it's a super little book. It's written with great verve, very easy to read, and yet touches upon the most profound subject. It was one of those books I tended to think probably not very many people had read it. But on the age of the internet now, of course, you come across lists of books, people, the most influential books in their lives, and I've been surprised the number of times that this has appeared in people's reading lists. So I think it's probably shaped a lot more people than me. So yeah, I would warmly recommend this as a book to get you thinking about God.
Yeah, I'm convicted every time I come across this book because I've not yet read it. And I've not really read a whole lot of Sproul, but everybody who's read this kind of says it's excellent. And lots of people say it's his best book. I don't know if you would agree with that. They certainly call it a classic, and you probably put it in that category.
I think classic. It was one of those things, I suppose, back 40 years ago, it was maybe a little bit more difficult to get books from the United States. I kind of kept an eye out for books that Sproul had written, and devoured everything I could. Certainly, yes, I think this remains the most important book in my life and the most formative. Other ones are great, and I benefit a lot from them, but I would have to say this remains top of the pile for me.
And Sproul's obviously known for that ability to communicate deep doctrines, difficult things to comprehend, and kind of pithy, straightforward, simple but not simplistic. I think he is a very straightforward kind of teacher. As you say, of difficult concepts sometimes. The other thing I like about Sproul, and that people often refer to as his winsomeness. It's a very winsome, warm way of communicating, and even when he's talking about difficult concepts or ideas that we might be uncomfortable with, he manages to do it in a very, very winsome way. Great, excellent. Well, I will make sure I add that to my to-read list for definite.
No, don't add it to your to-read list. Just read it. That's the only. Don't add things to a to-read list; they never get read.
They never get read. Yes, I have to at some point take the plunge and pick that one up. Yeah. Book number 3 then.
Yeah, book number 3 has a bit of an unusual title and a bit of an unusual author's name. So it's called Personal Declension and the Revival of Religion in the Soul by Octavius Winslow, all of which is a bit of a mouthful.
Yes, you might have to do some definition explaining here.
This Octavius Winslow was a Congregationalist minister in the 19th century, friend of Spurgeon. And this book really looks at the whole subject of whenever we run into those spiritual dry spells in our lives. How do we get out of them? How do we recover from them? And Winslow really takes us through such periods in our lives and seeks to inspire us really to recover our walk with God. I'm going to read a little bit of it to you if you don't mind.
Give us a flavour of it.
I'm going to read it because sometimes, in a sense, all I do is read this first paragraph, and it, in a sense, I almost feel I don't need to read the rest of the book.
Sufficient.
So. So he begins the book by saying, if there's one consideration more humbling than another to a spiritually minded believer, it is that after all God has done for him, after all the rich displays of his grace, the patience and tenderness of his instructions, the repeated discipline of his covenant, the tokens of love received and the lessons of experience learned, there should still exist in the heart a principle, the tendency of which is to secret, perpetual, and alarming departure from God. Truly there is in this solemn fact that we might well lead to the deepest self-abasement before him. And I say, every time I read that, it's almost as if it stops me in my tracks and reminds me just of the need for that regular, fresh communion with God, and to kind of, I suppose, as we might say today, hit the reset button a little bit. And I say that's before he gets into the meat of what he wants to talk about. So so I say a bit of a kind of uninviting title and a bit of an uninviting author's name, but I think it is a real spiritual tonic for us.
And such an important issue as well, because so many of us struggle frequently with this kind of spiritual dryness at different periods of time. And of course this is, something he recognises from the outset, that for all that God has done for us, we still wonder. So again, I think it's a very timely reminder, and even if you get beyond the first paragraph, even the first chapter, I think kind of stirs the heart a bit as well, to get us to think about this vital matter. And sometimes it's useful to have those issues addressed by someone from a different era who talks about things in a different way that provokes thoughts. Again, he's coming from a very different age. The language is a little bit different from the language that we would use, and yet I think there's nonetheless in it the ability to kind of penetrate our heart and touch on things that are, I suppose, universal throughout the Christian experience in all ages. Great, excellent. And if nothing else, it looks good to have a book on the shelf that says "Personal Declension." That's by Octavius Winslow.
So I think I first came across this. I think my mum owned a copy of this, and I think that's where I first came across it, and then bought a copy of my own. So.
Great, excellent. Well, thank you. That's an important recommendation for the topic that it covers, and can be helpful.
Yeah, number. Where are we? Number four?
Number four
is this? Yeah. Bruce Milne, Know the Truth, describes itself as a handbook of Christian belief. So it is a little, really an introduction to Christian doctrine, and it covers all the major areas that we might expect a book like that to cover. Authority, the doctrine of God, doctrine of humanity, person and work of Christ, person and work of the Spirit, the church, and the last things. And there's a wonderful little introduction for anyone who would like to know a little bit more about doctrine. Again, it's very, very accessible. It is a little book that can be read. It's also a little book that can be studied. And one of the ways that I got into it really was we used this in our church as a kind of manual in our adult Bible class. And over actually a period of years, we worked our way through the various sections and thought about it. And it was a great way for us all to be introduced to doctrine, to think about it. And again, I think it was one of those books that probably set a bit of a framework in my own life for good doctrine and how to think about it. So I think it, as far as I know, it's still in print with a better, a more robust cover. But this one again has stood the test of time.
Yes, I have a edition of a white hardback kind of edition with a wee blue picture on it. And the first time I came across it, an older Christian in my home church bought me a copy, and we met up for a period of time reading a bit of it, talking about it. So it was useful back then, but I don't remember a whole lot of what I read. But more recently I was teaching basic Christian doctrines, and I revisited it. And what I found really helpful by looking at it was not necessarily what Bruce Millen had to say on all those things, but the volume of scripture references in it
Yes.
really struck me.
Yeah.
And that was actually most helpful. So I was looking for biblical evidence for
Yeah.
certain attributes of God, loads of biblical references for me to look up. That was really striking for me whenever I was reading it.
Yeah, I think that's why it lends itself to study.
Yeah.
As you say, it's not even so much necessarily what he says, but it's the scripture that he points you to that you can then begin to dig into that and see how the doctrine is worked out. So I think it's very, very valuable as a handbook, very useful as a good study tool.
And he's clearly done the work in the text
he
to
has,
draw those things out, to be able to give all those references. Yeah.
I remember years ago he spoke at the annual pastors' conference back when it was in Portrush, and he was a lovely, godly man, engaged in a very challenging and yet interesting ministry in a Baptist church in Vancouver. So it was nice to meet the man who wrote the book.
Who wrote the book, yeah, for sure. And it's always nice when that happens and they're nice, godly people and not otherwise.
Well, I mean, he was a delightful man.
And he has I think he's probably more well known for kind of doctrinal, systematic theology, such as Know the Truth, but he's also written a commentary on the Book of Acts, which I think is in the Focus on the Bible commentary series. Yeah. But I've preached through parts of Acts, and I found that really useful just in sermon prep. So he is a compelling Bible teacher, and whether that's preaching expositionally or whether that's a kind of more topical, thematic, doctrinal.
Yeah, he has written a commentary in the Bible Speaks Today series on John, which I've used over the years, and again, as you say, very compelling. And he was a great preacher, very, very engaging, teaching the Bible. So, yeah, so I'd recommend that. It's a great way to start. If you, I know I'm only allowed 5, but I'll also give a plug to Sinclair Ferguson's book, The Christian Life. Which is also a great little doctrinal introduction, which again read as a teenager, and again was very helpful just in shaping my thinking about some of these things.
Well, Sinclair Ferguson's made it into my list as well, but on the doctrine of the Holy Spirit in particular, an excellent book.
I think I could have easily have had that book into my list as well, so I think that would have been...
yes, whittling it down to 5 is difficult, isn't it? Great, super. And I think if you're, we talk a lot about discipleship relationships and those kinds of things, and what do you do with people? And I would say Bruce Millen's Know the Truth, great. Buy a couple of copies, meet up with someone and just talk about these. And big
they're big doctrines. I mean, I'd say we went through it in our adult Bible class, and then when I became a pastor, I took it up again, and we went through it in our men's study group. And I think it's always beneficial to use, and a great tool to use to help people get grounded in some basic Christian doctrine.
Yeah. Good. Okay, 5th and final book then.
This is an interesting one. This, in a sense, is the book that's not the book. If I can,
you might have to explain yourself on that one.
Yes, that might require a little bit of explanation. So when I was a student, I led a little Bible study group in the history department. And as a parting gift, they bought me The Christian Soldier by Dr. Martin Lloyd-Jones.
Yeah.
And it's the final volume in his series. I think it's 8 in his expositions of Ephesians. I didn't have any of the others, so I thought, let's not start at 6, or 8, chapter 6, book 8. So I went out and bought volume 1 of Ephesians chapter 1, which is the book I really want to talk about. Okay. But the reason it's not here is that I loaned it out last year for an assignment in college, and it has not returned.
Oh, so we're doing a wanted ad now.
Yeah. So this is now turning into Crime Watch. So if this sparks anybody's conscience or memory about volume 1 of Dr. Lloyd-Jones on Ephesians, you can you can
Yes.
send the book back.
Do you put your name on the inside of the books, do you?
I think I did.
Yeah, so if it's on your shelf, go open up the first page and see if it says
see if my name,
David Luke.
my name is on it. When we put this up on video, there will be a little number that you can running across the bottom that you can call secretly and
Anonymously,
and report others who may have hands on it. So say really, so really, volume 1 is the one.
Okay.
Is the one. Not there's anything at all wrong with this volume, but volume 1, I'd say, really was my kind of big introduction. I think to Lloyd Jones, and I would read it on a Sunday afternoon when I was a student, and it really captivated my heart. I felt my heart warmed really as I read it. I was being informed, I was being instructed. But my heart was warmed, and I think those two things very, very importantly go together. And I would say probably of any chapter in the Bible, Ephesians chapter 1 is probably the one that's kind of most instinctively in my mind.
Okay.
And I kind of put it down, to my studying, reading that book.
Lloyd Jones,
And I know people make fun of Lloyd Jones for being ponderous. You know the old joke that he was speaking on verse 2 and people come back in a year's time and he was on to verse 3. That type of.
He does have that reputation for moving very slowly.
But nonetheless, I think that kind of slow, steady style meant the text of the passage really stuck in my mind. So I sort of sense I know that passage of Scripture in one sense better than any other, and so it was just so heartwarming and encouraging. His views on the Holy Spirit and sitting with the Holy Spirit in it are pretty controversial. But I wouldn't adhere to them myself. But say leaving that aside, I just think it is it's so helpful, so engaging, so heartwarming. It's really printed sermons in some respect, and you can feel the sermon, if I can put it in those terms. That sermonic nature coming across from the page. You do feel as if you're listening a sermon. So I would recommend that to anybody to read and to dig into. I think you'll find it hugely encouraging. I wouldn't recommend it to those who want to know how to preach. He had a very distinctive style of preaching that he was able to carry off, and I don't think really anyone else could carry off that same style of preaching. But to kind of be a recipient of it, I think is such an encouraging thing.
Brilliant. Yeah, Ephesians 1 it's a fabulous chapter. Lots of difficult things in there, but lots of glorious things as well. Have you read all 8 volumes of this?
I've now managed to get through all 8 volumes. Sorry, that makes it sound as if it's a bit of a chore. I managed to get through them, but no, they were all encouraging.
Just a lot.
But I say it really stuck. That first volume, I think, in particular, really sticks in my mind.
Was that your first time reading Lloyd Jones? Was that your first introduction to him?
It was. I'd read his little book, From Fear to Faith. It used to be published, and a little book on Habakkuk. Which I enjoyed and found helpful. But I say it was the Ephesians 1 thing that really stood out for me and kind of sucked me into the kind of world of Lloyd Jones. And in one sense, because they're based on sermons, it spoils you a little bit for reading other Christian books that aren't. Because they don't have that same style and warmth, and they can be a bit more didactic. But it's there's incredible kind of spiritual warmth and encouragement and nurture with these.
Which can be quite surprising whenever you read his biography, or on another episode, his 2-volume biography by Ian Murray's highlighted, but and his preaching style, not very demonstrative, very kind of note bound, at least at the beginning of the sermons. Apparently, as the sermon progressed, he became a little bit more animated. But I think people think of him as austere.
Yeah.
And then, but that comes through as teaching.
It's funny, I think a little bit. One of my other temptations was to bring something by Jonathan Edwards. And again, I think when you read his sermons, you get a similar sense. Again, he wasn't a very demonstrative kind of preacher. But I think the thing with Edwards is when you read his sermons, you get a sense of the relentless logic of what he's saying. And there's incredible power just in that relentless logic rather than any kind of thing that particularly grabs you because of the way it's said.
Yeah. Great. Excellent. Well, thank you for sharing that, and we hope that Volume 1 is returned to its rightful owner in due course.
So there's no reward apart from my heartfelt gratitude, I'm afraid. So.
Excellent. I'm going to share one of my books. I was going to make a joke about how you love talking about feelings, because you often don't enjoy that. But you've already talked about your heart being stirred by some of the books you've read. My book to highlight in this episode is Tim Keller's The Meaning of Marriage. There are an abundance of marriage books available. I've read a handful of them. This is the best marriage book I've ever read, I think. I think it stands out from all the rest that I've read. But interestingly, the thing that really struck me whenever I first read it was the fact that in a marriage book he has a chapter devoted to singleness. And on two fronts, so one just kind of being conscious of singleness as a married couple, but also the reality that you will be single again if you do not pass away before your spouse. And to live a life that if and when that happens, you're not isolated because the two of you have kind of retracted yourself into your own wee world, and to be aware of that. And he even challenges, about using that singleness then as a ministry opportunity to more time and opportunity with others. And I just thought that really struck me. I don't think I've ever read another marriage book that has a chapter on singleness, and just the wisdom in preparing yourself for that. Because I think sometimes you get married, you think, well, that's we're set for then, but that's not always the case. And just having the gumption to challenge people on that kind of thinking, because probably you read a lot of marriage books early in marriage as you're trying to figure out answers of how to live together and how to make this work. And then with the experience of time and wisdom, you maybe need that less so, but then to challenge people who are newly married just to think about a life of singleness, which is an inevitability at some point. My wife, Elizabeth, is a great fan of Tim and Kathy Keller and their dynamic. She loves to listen to them sparking off one another, but she said the thing that always strikes her is that Tim Keller's quite prepared to step back and let Kathy have her say. And she said it's very obvious if you watch the dynamic between them that he really loves her and is really supportive of her and seeking her welfare and respecting her ideas and her opinions. So it's probably, when you see them together, maybe then that's a good add for the book itself. Definitely. And that certainly comes through in the book. And I'm sorry, I think I said it's by Tim Keller. It is by Tim and Kathy Keller. But, her name's on the front as well. It definitely comes through, that kind of rich relationship that they enjoy together. But of course now Kathy is single.
She's single now.
And so some of that has she's been thinking about that beforehand, it's always good to think about these things before we experience them rather than trying to get answers. So that's the book, one of the books that have formed me, and just trying to think well about marriage and the fact that it's permanent in this life, but it's not permanent for eternity. Well, thank you, Dr. Luke,
pleasure.
for the books and bringing those along. It's fascinating to hear. And no doubles from what other people have said, although Lloyd Jones has featured, but not that particular volume.
Yeah.
So, yeah, great. So thank you so much. Thank you, listeners, for listening to Let's Talk. And I hope, I was going to say, I hope you've found a few books that you can add to your to-read list, but I'm going to change that after our conversation. I hope you find a book that you actually read rather than adding to your
I'm glad you've been rebuked.
And let me take the opportunity just to remind you that at the Irish Baptist College, we're committed to training men and women for gospel service here in Ireland and across the globe. If you're interested in preparing for ministry at a theological college that is academically rigorous and vocationally focused, then I want to invite you to explore the opportunities available to study theology with us at the Irish Baptist College. You can do that by visiting our website, or better still, by contacting us and speaking to us in person. Until next time.